He is one of the world's leading crowdfunding experts and has helped over 150 entrepreneurs raise over $50 million on crowdfunding platforms like Kickstarter and Indiegogo. He helps leaders, executives, entrepreneurs, and nonprofits tell better stories, fund their dreams, grow their companies, and do work that matters. Today, he'll teach us how crowdfunding is changing the world and how it could change your life. Delegates, please give a huge hero's welcome to Clay Hebert.
Have fun.
Thank you.
Woo!
Have you ever felt stuck? Like really stuck? Joe was stuck. Joe needed to raise $100,000 to finish the final piece of a critical project. So, he went to corporations to sponsor the project. He lobbied city, state, and federal governments for funding. And he went to millionaires who could easily write a single check to fully fund the project. But they all said no. Every single gatekeeper said no. So, Joe turned to crowdfunding. And it worked. Over the next 5 months, he raised $100,000 from over 120,000 people. And finally, after years of politics, delays, and gatekeepers, the Statue of Liberty had a base to stand on. It was 1885, and France had given us the Statue of Liberty. All we were responsible for was the base. But it was sitting disassembled in crates in New York Harbor. Because nobody would fund the base, the brick pedestal for it to stand on. That was the deal with France. They would give us this beautiful statue, we just had to have a place to put it. Can you believe that? The Statue of Liberty is the iconic image of New York City, but in 1855, nobody in New York City was interested in funding the base for only $100,000. So it was sitting gathering dust in New York Harbor. Until Joe, whose full name is Joseph Pulitzer, yes, of the Pulitzer Prize, decided to lead. Joe decided that the Statue of Liberty belonged in New York City. He did 3 things. First, he decided to lead. He said, let us not wait for the millionaires to give us this money, because this is not a gift from the millionaires of France to the millionaires of America, but a gift from the whole people of France to the whole people of America. Next, Joe found his tribe. Joe owned a newspaper called The World, which allowed him to reach tens of thousands of people. Not millions, not everyone. The World was not a newspaper for the gatekeepers and the millionaires and the aristocrats. It was a newspaper for the people. And last, Joe told a story. A compelling story just to the people that wanted to hear it. Donate any amount of money, even 1 penny, and he'll put your name in the newspaper. Donate $1 and get a small figurine of the Statue of Liberty. Donate $5 and get a slightly larger figurine of the Statue of Liberty. It worked. He raised the $100,000. The average, from 120,000 people, the average donation was 78 cents. 78 cents from 120,000 people, and now the Statue of Liberty stands tall and proud on a crowd-funded pedestal in New York Harbor. Joseph Pulitzer's tale is a story about leadership and initiative and marketing, but more than anything, it's a tale about gatekeepers. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. So what is a gatekeeper? Well, let me offer one simple definition. A gatekeeper is anyone who can tell you no. Anyone who can say your project isn't worthy enough. No, your idea is not creative enough. No, your dream isn't big enough. Do you know what the gatekeepers told Walt Disney? He was fired from a newspaper for lacking imagination and having no original ideas. That's what the gatekeepers thought of Walt Disney. But he built Disneyland, not the gatekeepers. Do you know what the gatekeepers thought of the Beatles? Decca Recording Studios rejected them. They said, "We don't like their sound. They have no future in show business." The Beatles went on to become the best-selling band in history. Do you know what the gatekeepers said about Oprah? We don't even call her Oprah Winfrey anymore. She achieved like single name status a long time ago. But she was still demoted from her job as a news anchor because some gatekeeper said she wasn't fit for television. And then Oprah went and built her entire empire on television. And my favorite, the boy wizard, Harry Potter. 20 years ago today, the first Harry Potter book was published. But before that, it was rejected by all 12 major publishers. Not one, not two, all 12. It's too long, they said, even though the first book was the shortest of the series. Children's books don't make money, the gatekeepers said. The movies alone have done $8 billion. If you add books and merch, $25 billion. And that doesn't even count the theme park. The worst part of it is that most of them didn't even read it. They threw it in the trash. After 12 publishers threw it in the trash, it landed in the hands of Nigel Newton, the CEO of Bloomsbury Publishing. And Nigel Newton didn't read it either, but he did do something that didn't occur to any other children's book publisher. He showed it to an actual child. He gave it to his 8-year-old daughter, Alice Newton, who ran upstairs and read it while he was cooking dinner, and then she ran downstairs and demanded the rest of it because she could see. You got to understand, Harry Potter almost didn't happen. It came this close to not happening, and it's hard to imagine. None of us would know it. It wouldn't exist. We would have never heard of it. It came this close to never existing. But his 8-year-old daughter, Alice Newton, could see. She could see what the gatekeepers couldn't see. As my friend Seth says, when the world changes, we get to choose what we see. And what it means in a revolutionary time like we're living through right now is that you have a blank slate and anything is possible. And so today, in the time that I have, my job is to help you see how the world is changing, help you see how the gatekeepers are falling, and to help you see the opportunity that's right here in front of us all. Because 20 years ago today, the first Harry Potter book was published, and since then, everything has changed. You will all face your own gatekeepers. People will tell you no. A lot of you probably already have. But if you care about your dream, you need to find a way around them. And if your dream requires money, the way to do that is crowdfunding. So I want to start with 5 myths about crowdfunding. Myth number 1 is that crowdfunding is new. The concept of crowdfunding is not new. Everyone talks about it like this hot new concept. But crowdfunding has existed for a really long time. In 1713, Alexander Pope crowdfunded a translation of Homer's Iliad. In 1783, a little piano player named Mozart crowdfunded a series of piano concertos. And as we saw in 1885, Joseph Pulitzer crowdfunded the base of the Statue of Liberty. Crowdfunding isn't new. What's new is the platforms and tools and the magical connection power of the internet. Myth number 2 is that crowdfunding is this small niche industry. Nope. Kickstarter is one platform and one type of crowdfunding. And they have raised over $3.1 billion from over 13 million backers and over 127,000 unique projects. Globally, crowdfunding has grown from only 800 million in 2010 to over 34 billion in 2015. And the most interesting stat is that this is the year that crowdfunding is on track to surpass venture capital. Venture capitalists, VCs, are the ultimate gatekeepers. Their job is to say no. And in just a few short years, globally, crowdfunding is on track to raise more total dollars than the VCs who fund Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat. Myth number 3, crowdfunding is only for artists. Most people think of crowdfunding and they think of starving artists or hipsters making wallets in Brooklyn. And there is some of that for sure. But crowdfunding has also helped students launch projects into space, turn shipping containers into classrooms, create smart luggage, and fund new types of drones. And crowdfunding has helped creators gain respect and recognition from some of the most traditional gatekeepers in the world. Blue Ruin won at the Cannes Film Festival. Innocente won an Oscar. Macklemore and Ryan Lewis won 4 Grammys. FUBAR was a New York Times bestseller. And Oculus Rift sold to Facebook for $2 billion. It's not just for creatives and artists. Myth number 4, crowdfunding is free money. Now this one is tricky because crowdfunding is definitely not free money, but the platforms are essentially free to use. So I'll explain. These are today's stats from Kickstarter, which is just one platform of many. 68% of projects fail, 32% of projects succeed. You cannot just slap up a project and hope it gets funded. You have to do the marketing. Platforms like Kickstarter and Indiegogo and other crowdfunding platforms are not magical cash machines that will do your marketing for you. Just like Joseph Pulitzer, you have to decide to lead, you have to find your tribe, and you have to tell a story. But most creators don't understand that, or they're too lazy to figure out how to do that, and that's why 68% of projects fail. But the platforms are essentially free to use, and what I mean by that is this. Of the hundreds of projects I've touched and seen the back-end analytics of, the platform fee is 5%, and of all these projects, the exposure from the platform does bring you more than 5% of the traffic and backers. The problem is people think it brings 95%. But the platforms bring 5% or more, often a lot more, so they do essentially pay for themselves. And myth number 5 is that you have never crowdfunded. Every single person in this room has not only crowdfunded, you've successfully crowdfunded. If you've ever chipped in on a pizza or a friend's birthday gift, you crowdfunded that. That is crowdfunding. In fact, this entire event is crowdfunded. If none of you bought tickets, we wouldn't be here. It would just be that guy. I want to talk about the 5 very different types of crowdfunding. The first is rewards-based crowdfunding. And it's very well named because you get a reward. Kickstarter and Indiegogo are the 2 most popular rewards-based crowdfunding platforms. Backers contribute typically small amounts of money, sometimes large, and the reward is often the item being produced, like an app or a hoodie or a drone or a smart suitcase. Second type of crowdfunding is donation-based crowdfunding. Donation-based and rewards-based look very similar from the outside, and the platforms look very similar, and some platforms like Indiegogo do both, but the psychology and the marketing and how you get people to back is completely different. In donation-based crowdfunding, there is no reward, it's a donation. So you don't get anything except likely the gratitude of the creator or the beneficiary and maybe a tax deduction. This is Tim Ferriss having a project on CrowdRise to raise money for medical research at Johns Hopkins. Donation-based crowdfunding is often used for nonprofits and causes, like building a well or a school in Africa, or raising money for someone's medical bills, and sometimes research like this. The third type is equity crowdfunding. In equity crowdfunding, investors invest larger amounts of money, and they actually get a piece of the underlying company. So this is like micro VCs, this is like angel investors that get equity. This is NAVD. NAVD is a heads-up display that's meant to combat distracted driving. NAVD raised a bunch of money on AngelList from equity crowdfunding from the crowd, from investors, and then they went on to raise more traditional VC money. The fourth type is debt crowdfunding. Now, debt crowdfunding is less known and a little less sexy than Kickstarter and Indiegogo, but it's actually a very big piece of the overall global crowdfunding pie. Debt crowdfunding is sometimes called peer-to-peer lending or crowd lending, but it's really simple to remember. It's basically a bank loan. Instead of going to get $30,000 from Bank of America, you might raise $3,000 from 10 different people, all with different interest rates. So it's crowd lending. The lenders get paid back principal plus interest. And Prosper and Lending Club are the two most popular debt crowdfunding platforms. And the fifth type is called recurring crowdfunding. Recurring crowdfunding is for regular content creators like podcasters and YouTubers, where fans pay for recurring content, exclusive perks, or sometimes shout-outs. The creator can charge by the month or by the piece of content. Patreon is the most popular recurring crowdfunding platform. This is the #1 project on Patreon, the Chapo Trap House podcast. They make over $66,000 a month from their patrons. Now that's the largest project on Patreon, results not typical, but if you have fans, if you're, follow a YouTuber, if you have fans and you get them to donate just $1 for each new piece of content or $1 a month, it can add up. And yes, you can use multiple types of crowdfunding at different stages of growth. So Amanda Palmer raised $1.2 million on Kickstarter, but now she makes over $40,000 per creation on Patreon. And what's interesting is Amanda had raised over $100,000 on her own personal website 4 years before Kickstarter even existed, because she spent time building a deep relationship with her tribe. Misfit Shine raised venture capital, then they did $800,000 on an Indiegogo presale, then they raised some more venture capital, and they eventually sold to the Fossil Group for $260 million. Everybody was happy. So I want to tell you a couple stories about a couple creators and entrepreneurs who are learning how to see how the world is changing. This is Lee Miller. Lee is the one on the left. Lee was cat-sitting his friend's cat, Pasha, and Pasha's owner was texting Lee for updates. She wanted to know how her little kitten was doing. So Lee would send her pictures and videos of Pasha chasing the laser, and then a light bulb went on. And Lee realized, this happens all the time. This is not just this person or when they go on vacation, but people leave their cats and go outside the home every single day, and they miss their cats. So how can you use the connection power of the internet to solve this problem? So Lee went away and did the back-of-the-envelope napkin sketch, and then he worked with an industrial design firm, and they mocked up this. It's called Kittio. After a month, they turned his napkin sketches into this. But he had no product. This was just the mock-up, just the design. The idea was that Kittio would sit on your bookshelf. It's got a laser, a video camera, and a speaker to allow you to see, interact, and engage with your cat. You can even dispense treats. Or at least that was the dream. But then Lee met some gatekeepers. He went to raise investment, and they couldn't see the vision. They didn't get it. They thought it was too hard. One investor told him, "This is impossible. That device is way too complex for one person to bring to market." On top of that, Lee had a second problem. He had no platform. When he came to me, he showed me the digital mock-up, and he said, "I want to launch this on Kickstarter." I said, "That's the kind of thing that could do very well on Kickstarter if you do the pre-marketing correctly." I said to Lee, "How many emails do you have?" And he looked at me kind of funny, and he goes, 2. I said, what do you mean 2? And he said, well, I use one for work and one for personal. And I explained to him, I said, no, I meant how many emails do you have of people who've raised their hand and said, I'm interested in Kitio, please let me know when you launch. And he said, I don't have any of those. I didn't know I was supposed to do that. You see, even if you have a great idea, crowdfunding is not a meritocracy. There's not the same million people refreshing the page deciding if your idea is good or not. It's a marketocracy, meaning crowdfunding is a combination of the success of your idea and the success of your marketing that idea. The biggest thing I see in all the people that come to me for help with crowdfunding is that they think their idea is going to save the day, but in fact, it's the marketing. I see great ideas die every day because people don't understand that, or they're not willing to do the marketing. But Lee was very willing. He's one of the best students I've ever had. So Lee had already decided to lead, and now he needed to find his tribe. He needed to collect the emails of the people who wanted Kitio. So we designed and built a simple landing page. What you see here is about the 4th iteration of the Kitio landing page. We tested it, we iterated it, and after a while it converted at 40%, meaning 4 out of 10 people that went to this website entered their email address to learn more. They raised their hand, they said, yes, please let me know when Kitio launches. So now we had a landing page that converted. Now we had to find the cat people. This site is called housepanther.com. Part of finding your tribe is ignoring everybody else. It's very likely that 99.9% of people do not care about whatever you're launching. That's actually good news because it allows you to ignore them and focus on the 0.1% that do care. The internet is great for pockets to find the crazy super fans. The tagline for housepanther.com is the premier online magazine for design-conscious cat people. This is Amazon.com for cat freaks. So Lee did a little giveaway. He said, enter your email for a chance to win a Kitio. Because it was the right site, because these are the super fans, he gathered 2,000 emails in a weekend. Lee was finding his tribe. And of course, Lee promoted in other places too. He partnered with people who owned Facebook pages, who for years had done nothing except post cat photos and videos and GIFs. And he went to them and he showed them Kitio. And they loved it because cat people love Kitio. And they were happy to partner with him. And he would pay for them to post about Kitio. And he would pay them more to have them boost those posts. So Lee was finding his tribe and collecting emails for less than 50 cents an email. And then he told them a simple story. Play with your cat even when you're not home. Very simple, but it speaks directly to the heart of cat lovers who leave their cat every day. In 6 months, Lee gathered 13,000 pre-launch opt-in emails of people who saw Kitio, raised their hand and said, yes, let me know when it's ready. All before he launched his Kickstarter. So when he launched his Kickstarter, he was fully funded in 36 minutes, 200% funded on the first day, and raised $270,000. And today, Lee sells Kitio on his website, but you can also find it in places like Best Buy and PetValue.com. Lee conquered the gatekeepers and he made his dream happen. Story number 2, this is Brooke and Sarah. Sarah's one of the top female developers in New York, but it took her 5 years in her career to work with another female developer. And then it took 5 more years to work with a second female developer. And she wanted to solve that problem at the source. So she recruited Brooke and they decided to lead. Their dream was to get young girls more interested in coding and STEM. So like Lee, they got out the notebook, they made some sketches, they built some rough prototypes, and then they talked to hundreds of girls across the world. And they packaged up their findings and used that to come up with the design and functionality of their new product. So the result, the idea, the dream, was called JewelBots, programmable friendship bracelets for the iPhone era. Technology-enabled jewelry for tween and teen girls that allow friends to communicate with each other. They can send messages. Girls can program their JewelBots when they get to light and buzz when they get new Instagram followers or when their dad is going to pick them up from school. That was the dream. But just like Lee, Brooke and Sarah ran into their own gatekeepers. The investors didn't understand it, probably because they weren't middle school girls. They thought the market was way too small. One investor specifically told them these words: "Give up, stop what you're doing, nobody wants this." And then he said something that was meant to be a compliment, but it was actually even worse. He said, "Go make an athletic wearable and I'll invest today." But that wasn't the problem that they wanted to solve. That wasn't their dream. So they persevered. They talked to more girls and parents. They organized and held Take Your Daughters to Hack days, and they continued to iterate on the prototype. They found their tribe, and then they told their story. They had a great story about the importance of girls learning to code, and they shared that story in a lot of places. They got a feature article in Wired, a feature article in Fast Company, and an endorsement from Bill Nye, the Science Guy. So when they launched on Kickstarter, they ended up raising over $166,000, funding the first batch of JewelBots. They were recently featured on Good Morning America. Next month, you can see them on PBS. And today, you can buy JewelBots on their website or at Target.com. They've shipped JewelBots to over 35 countries, and most importantly, thousands of young girls are using JewelBots to learn how to code. Sarah and Brooke proved a lot of gatekeepers wrong, and they made their dream happen. So what now? What do you do with all this? How do you take advantage of this amazing opportunity that's in front of you? Because the future is not coming, the future is already here. This is a 3D printed shoe. How does the world change when we don't have to go to the store or even Zappos.com to buy a shoe? When we can walk into our kitchen or our garage and 3D print the perfect shoe? 3D printing is going to change everything. Autonomous cars are already here. So how does the world change when nobody has to drive and we essentially eliminate traffic jams and accidents? If you're in high school now and you have kids eventually, it's likely they're never going to drive. But the future will be safer. Autonomous cars are also going to change everything. Cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and the underlying technology blockchain, a distributed and decentralized network of transactions, are far from being mainstream. But they are the next evolution of crowdfunding and the disintermediation of gatekeepers. The blockchain is going to change everything. So what can you do? 3 things. Decide to lead, find your tribe, and tell your story. Not to everyone, not to millions of people, just the people who care. One very specific thing that will help with that. Tonight or tomorrow, go buy your domain name. This is leonbridges.com. So if your name is Leon Bridges, you're out of luck. But buy your domain name, your first name and your last name.com. First reason, resumes are dying. And even though they still are clinging on, companies are legally required often to Google you before they interview you. If you own your domain name and you publish on that site, you get to own that digital real estate. Same with social networks. Reserve your social networks with your real name, because the front page of Google, when people Google your name, is the new resume. More importantly, you can use your website to execute, to decide to lead, to find your tribe, and to tell your story. Tinker, play, fail. It's okay, pixels are free. Your own website is the ultimate sandbox to test and play with your dreams. Joe Pulitzer didn't own joepulitzer.com. I do. So if you want the slides and a bunch more crowdfunding resources and everything else, I put it, just to make it easy to remember, at joepulitzer.com, or you can text Pulitzer to 33444, and I'll email you a bunch of crowdfunding resources. So a lot of you are going to go be doctors, scientists, and engineers, some of the most noble professions in the world. But what are you going to do with that? Is that all? Or are you going to do more? More, like Sarah and Brooke, were more than female developers. They realized their dream of inspiring an entire generation of young women to code. How Lee Miller was more than just an inventor, and he allowed cat owners everywhere to play with their cat, even when they're not home. And how Joseph Pulitzer was more than a newspaper owner and actually saved the Statue of Liberty and kept it in New York City. So what is your dream? Who is your gatekeeper? And what is your more? No one can read the book that's in your head. No one can hear the song that's half written on your computer. And no one can use the invention that you never shipped. Sure, Joe Pulitzer owned a newspaper, and none of you own a newspaper, but you have something much more powerful. You have access to the platforms and tools and connection machines that Joe Pulitzer couldn't even dream of. They connect you to anyone in the world instantly, they fit in your pocket, and they're essentially free. I don't know your dreams, but I know you have them. And when we follow our dreams, when we decide to lead, when we find our tribe, and when we tell our story, something magical happens. The gatekeepers disappear. Thank you.